welcome to SEGA News Bits Live. I'm a little low. There we go. Happy New Year. I'm allowed to say that. I know the cutoff was usually like January 3rd or January 7th, but this is the first SEGA News Bits of the new year, so I'm allowed to say it. And I make the rules here and welcome. This is SEGA News Bits Live, your intermittent live video news show that I put together in just a couple of minutes before I actually record. And I mainly do because I pay for the streaming software and it kills me when I go a month and I don't actually use it. And I'm like, man, just spent $40 for something I don't use. But then again, I mean, we subscribe to Xbox and PlayStation and Switch and all that stuff. And I think I went a whole year without using the Xbox subscription service. Anyway, we're going to take a quick look back at the past 9 days of news. We're also going to, as the title suggests, remember David Rosen, even though I personally never met the man, but I have spoken to countless people who have met him and have worked with him and have interviewed him. So we're going to look back on him. Let's take a look at the week of news that we've had. So it's actually been quite busy in the world of Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. I'm not exactly sure why they put these so close together, but as you'll see at the end of our little news rundown, before we talk about David Rosen, you'll see that we had Pac-Man. Actually, it's going on right now. I debated, I flipped a coin. I was like, man, should I jump on and do a quick video for the 5 people listening, or should I jump on and play Sonic Racing Cross Worlds? And I'll get to it. Thankfully, with the new Pac-Man event that they have going on, they're doing, I believe, 5, 6, and 7 times point multipliers for the winners. And during the Knights one, I believe I got first place about 4 times in a row, and then I got the multipliers, and it was a piece of cake. So I feel like Pac-Man's going to be similar. It's going to go quickly. If you haven't checked it out, the Pac-Man DLC is quite hefty. I enjoyed it. It has the 4 ghosts as well as Pac-Man and his car. It also has a Pac-Man village and maze. It's like part Pac-Man world and part retro Pac-Man, where you go inside the arcade machine. I think that's super cool. It actually kind of evokes those All-Stars Racing Transform things that we've seen in the past. So I'd recommend the Pac-Man one if you're like picking and choosing. I personally am using a digital deluxe review code, so everything just comes to me. You know, I'm that's just the life that I live. Everything just lands in my lap. We will be talking about David Rosen in just a moment, but yes, he did pass away on Christmas Day of 2025. And I know there were some fans who were like, man, why doesn't SEGA say something? Why isn't SEGA of Japan, SEGA of America? Like, guys, you have to remember, they're not news sources. They are companies, corporations. I also do believe that Japanese businesses kind of go on break up until the end of the first week of the new year. Also, staff was on holiday vacation, so you can't expect the social team to put together a memorial post within minutes. Also, you have to remember, too, that the family would have to be reached out to internally, making sure to craft the right message, use the right image, and they did share memory of him on the social medias, which I thought was really sweet. So again, we'll talk about David in just a moment. This is exciting for SegaBits, so the numbers are in. SegaBits continues to be the #1 Sega fan site, thanks to you, and also thanks to the other fan sites who just straight up gave up. I don't know what they did; they just disappeared. But yes, throughout our social media platforms that we do get analytics for, so that's YouTube, which I guess is social media, Instagram and Facebook, as well as the website. We had 23.9 million views in 2025, which was actually nearly a 30%. If you want to sound like we're sitting at the table, internally, and we're looking at the numbers, that's a year-over-year growth of 30%. So that's very exciting. Um, and yeah, that just goes to prove that fan sites are not dead, websites are not dead. Granted, I'll share a little insider info. The website numbers were probably third on the list. So there is a there is a social media platform I mentioned there that is getting fewer views than the website. But the thing is the website legitimizes us. It stores all of our information. It stores all of our images, all of our news stories, and the social medias are going to continue to drive people to the website. That's something I'm going to be doing in the new year is posting the story. Every time there's a new story, even this post, it's going to go out onto the Instagram and the Facebook. This was exciting, a little New Year's news. This was posted by Big Elk. 100 Swords online multiplayer is restored thanks to Dreamcast Live. And, 100 Swords is one of those Japan-only games. I do believe it might have received a port to the PC. But unfortunately, it says here, prepping the game for online action is still simple unless you wish to use your broadband adapter, which 100 Swords is sadly not capable with. So this is a DreamPie thing. I have differing takes on DreamPie. I don't want to get into it. And then, just a few things. Check out, we have a Swing and Report show live where we looked at our favorite and most disappointing SEGA games of 2025. We also had a remembrance for Nick Thorpe, who wrote for Retro Gamer Magazine and was a features editor there. He also was a writer for Sega Bits way back in the day, and he did represent Sega Bits at events, so he is sorely missed. I actually just received the latest copy of Retro Gamer Magazine, which considers the Xbox 360 a retro console now, and Nick has a write-up in there, and I'm really hoping that the next issue to come out will also have some writings from him, and hopefully some remembrance from the Retro Gamer team. And you can check the website. We have a lot of other bits of news. Hey, Sega Bits. That's maybe where we got the name. But let's talk about David Rosen. So yes, David Rosen, he passed away Christmas Day, 2025. We have this wonderful write-up from Big Elk, which I might just read verbatim after the break when Elk actually has the whole historical write-up. But David, he passed away December 25th, 2025, at the age of 95 in his Hollywood Hills, Los Angeles home. So, I mean, if you're going to go in your mid-90s, like that's pretty impressive. In fact, it was kind of an ongoing, I wouldn't say maybe like I don't know, like it was an ongoing thing where we would be talking about Sega news that seemed so long ago, and we're like, and then David Rosen would come up, and it would just be like, oh, and he's still around. Isn't that wild? It's kind of like Walt Disney still being alive, which is, I mean, what I don't want to get into it, but like Walt Disney, I think he died. He did not die at old age, so there would be a possibility where Walt Disney could have been alive much later than he was. And David Rosen here, he was definitely alive for a long time. And it was surprising. I'd talk to people. We'd talk to Tom Kalinske, Ken Horowitz, the writers over at Read Only Memory, and they would be like, oh yeah, we interviewed David like 6 years ago or something. It's just like, wow, he's still around. But yeah, let's get into the history. If this is boring to you, sorry, but history is important to me, video game history. So let's talk about David Rosen. So before Rosen Enterprises, David Rosen was part of the U.S. Air Force. He was stationed in Japan, and he served in the Korean War from 1949 to 52, and after that he formed Rosen Enterprises in 1954 in Japan to import electronic photo booths and slot machines to the country from the U.S. as he saw Japan's economy slowly beginning to improve from the aftermath of the Korean War and World War II. A lot of legendary Japanese gaming companies actually had similar origins, as Taito started around the same time, importing vending machines and jukeboxes, and even Namco began by maintaining electronic kids' rides for department stores. Mr. Rosen merged Rosen Enterprises with another company that imported jukeboxes, Nihon Guraku Busan, in 1965. turning the new company into Service Games, or as we know it today by its shorthand, SEGA or SEGA Enterprises Limited. Rosen served as the newly merged company's president and CEO. And just a sidebar here, if you want to learn more about Sega's history, we actually have a great Sega Talk episode on the history of the Sega logo, and that even delves into Sega's origins. So there's even more pre-Rosen stuff in there when Sega, with the whole standard games thing. And that's why David is a co-founder. He's not the only founder, but he's definitely probably one of the most important co-founders, in my opinion. Rosen noticed the growing popularity of shooting gallery coin-op game machines in Japan, and by then every arcade in every city in Japan had at least one or two. Rosen Enterprises had imported a great deal of them themselves in the years leading up to the merger. Sega produced its very first shooting game of its own in 1966. We can see it here. It's Periscope. It was Sega's first original arcade game, though it was an adaptation of a different game called Periscope from Namco, made the year before. It was the first arcade game to start play from just a single quarter in the USA and 30 yen in Japan, both of which became the standard price of a credit in arcade games for years to come. So yeah, Sega was the pioneer in the 25-cent arcade game. It was also a huge hit in all three major sectors of the gaming industry: Japan, the United States, and Europe. While Rosen was still president and CEO of Sega Enterprises Ltd., he also sold the company. He had sold the company to media conglomerate Gulf Western in 1969. After that, Rosen also became a director for Paramount Pictures, the very same Paramount Pictures that would make the Sonic the Hedgehog movies decades later, who were also owned by Gulf Western at the time. And this actually explains why you will see Paramount properties released by Sega. There were Star Trek games at that time, so that explains that. Gulf Western would later sell off the U.S. branch of Sega Enterprises Limited, known at the time as Gremlin Industries Incorporated, to Bally Midway in 1984, 1 year after the launch of the SG-1000 in Japan. With Sega of Japan up for grabs after this, Rosen, alongside with Hayao Nakayama and Isao Okawa, would buy all the Japanese side of the company soon after. Okawa became the new Sega chairman, Nakayama became the president, and Rosen became the co-president. Then, in '86, Rosen formed Sega of America. Both companies are still in operation today, though they both operate very differently now than they did in the '80s and '90s. Rosen stayed on as the co-president of Sega of Japan and America, and he oversaw the international launches of the Master System, Genesis, Mega Drive, Game Gear, Saturn, until he finally left Sega in 1996. Mr. Rosen would retire after that, and he would still see Sega through the Dreamcast years and their eventual merger with Sammy as an advisor. So isn't that eye-opening that this man, 95 years old, we see in these grainy black and white pictures in the books from Ken Horowitz, was relevant and remained relevant even in the era that we were little tiny kids. We had David Rosen there making decisions behind the scenes. We just didn't know it. This was a very popular post we put on social media back in 2022. It's Sega founder David Rosen and COO of Sega of America, Shinobu Toyoda, taking a rare photo with Sonic the Hedgehog. He actually slowed down so they could take a picture with him. And I love this Sonic the Hedgehog costume because it just screams like, again, I was talking about Walt Disney. You look at those old like early Walt Disney Studios pictures, and they had the worst Mickey Mouse costumes. And this is, no disrespect, but this is pretty bad. I wouldn't doubt this is probably why it got so much traction on social media. As far as we know, David Rosen passed away peacefully in his LA home, and deservedly so, because his keen eye for the potential of arcade games over half a century ago was right on the money. He was one of the key figures who nurtured this very young industry through a rough period of establishment and change, not to mention the infamous 1983 video game crash in North America. He also saw tons of potential in both Japan and the US as driving forces in the video game industry for years to come, which is why he felt the need to form Sega of America in the mid-'80s, when Sega, for a brief time, had no more presence in North America than a few arcade games released during that time. Many of the major players in the gaming industry, including Sega, came from both Japan and the US today, and both countries continue to innovate video games constantly. But what is most important to us at SegaBits, along with our massive community, is the simple fact that Sega today would not exist without David Rosen. He formed and ran a company responsible for some of the finest games and franchises the world has ever seen, and we've all come together as a community through our shared love of those games and the experience they brought us. SegaBits was among many websites formed from this shared love of the games Sega birthed over the years, and it continues to be a gathering point for this amazing community of fans who were inspired by the many games Sega has provided us and will continue to provide us. We cannot thank David Rosen enough for making all of this possible. And I welcome all of you to share your comments on the article we have posted to the website. Of course, you don't have memories of David. If you do, that would be amazing if you actually met him. But if you have any, favorite moments in Sega history that you've since learned now, having heard from me, David had a hand in, please share them. And if you do want to read more about Mr. Rosen, you can check out a translated interview with him and Hayao Nakayama from 1978. It's actually shared by our friends over at Sega 16. I'll bring that up here. This was posted back in 2022. So it's very cool to go back in time and find these classic interviews. Look at that. Look at those. See, I was talking about those blurry black and white pictures. And you're like, whoa, who are those guys? Look at that Gulf Western. And there's David Rosen there in a very blurry picture. Is he holding a cigar? Look at that. Maybe. That'd be awesome. And I should also mention, before I close out this show, that shipping this week is the latest book from Ken Horowitz of Sega 16. It is a Game Gear book. Let me actually look it up right now because the name escapes me because I don't have it in hand yet. But this book has been a long time coming. It's called Sega Goes Handheld, A History of the Game Gear and Its Games. It is in stock now. You can either buy it directly from McFarland, who publishes the book. They largely do historical books, textbooks. They do a great job publishing, and it makes sense why Ken would continue to work with them. But Ken has done multiple books with them. He has a Playing at the Next Level, and he also has, what was the other one? One's on arcades, one's on the 16-bit consoles, specifically Sega of America. He also has one on Nintendo's brief entry into the arcade industry. He has From Pinballs to Pixels, which is about the pinball industry, and then this is his latest one, Sega Goes Handheld. I highly recommend it, even though I haven't read it yet, just because knowing Ken and the quality that he puts out, it's going to be well worth a read. And I haven't looked in it yet, but I do know that he did ask me for some materials that I have in my collection that he wanted to have scanned and translated. In looking at the breakdown here, actually, I'll share this on the screen. You can see the chapter breakdown. There actually are developer interviews, as well as notable games called out. But it is you can see here, it's a full history of the Sega Game Gear, as well as a very lengthy, it ends here at 93, the developer interviews begin, and then you get into the notable games. And the book itself is just shy of, I think, 250 pages. So it's a beefy book about a little console, and I'm looking forward to checking it out. And we will be having Ken on the Swing and Report Show podcast, hopefully in February, once the book comes in hand and I get to read it a little bit. So looking forward to that, and looking forward to 2026, at least when it comes to Sega, because this is my little fun spot. This is my vacation from the rest of the world. So we also have a really exciting Sega Talk episode launching on our Patreon this week, and it's going to go live on for everyone else, I think, in 2 weeks. So if you want to hear it early, you can support us on Patreon. It's $1, gets you in the door, and you get audio, $5 video. But it's about the graphic design of Sega box art in America. Now, I'm not talking about the art, like the game art itself, but everything that encapsulates it. Those little red stripes that they had for the Genesis, the blue for the Sega CD. We talk about the early box art for the Game Gear. We talk about the early box art for the Sega CD as well. Everything, really. We cover it all. And it's a really fun discussion because I love when we go through the timeline of releases and you start to learn things. You start to realize that they actually would reuse fonts and reuse elements from years earlier in making those. So yeah, very exciting stuff. And just looking at the comments here, we have some longtime viewers. We have Sonic Sama in the chat. Happy New Year, Big Bear. Thank you, Little Bear. We also have Objective Binary 7547 saying, hope you had a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, Segabits crew. And then we have Sonic Rocks 2 here saying, can you post a link for the book? Yes, I'll put that in the video description. You can check that out. But we will see you sooner than later on Sega News Bits Live. Check us out also on segabits.com. Check us out on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. We're on Twitter, but I don't post there anymore. It's mostly cross-posting. We're on Blue Sky. I don't really use that too much. Really, if you want to find us, we're here on YouTube. We're on our website, and we're in your dreams when Nights is involved. So that'll do it, and we will see you next game. Gamers, game on. Bye.